Hi, I'm Joe Welinske, and I'm the program manager for what will be the second annual Northwest Technical Communication Conference taking place at the University of Washington Tacoma campus in Tacoma, Washington, September 7th and 8th. And I have the nice job of talking to our many presenters, and today I'm speaking with Andy Fitzgerald. Hello, Andy.
Hello, Joe.
It's good to see you, and you're a speaker at the Seattle UX Conference, Convey UX, earlier this year, so it's good to have you involved in this event. I'm speaking from my home office on Vashon Island, Washington. Where are you talking to us from?
I'm speaking from my temporary home office of many doors on Finney Ridge. We're actually painting floors in my current office, so I've moved into the library, as it were. So little shuffle around, some weird backgrounds, but
Right.
keep the options open.
Well, Finney Ridge is a nice neighborhood on the north side of Seattle, so we're enjoying the same kind of weather today. Well,
Yeah.
so I thought a good place to start would be for you to talk a little bit about your background and the types of things that you're involved in.
Yeah, so I am a user experience architecture and design consultant. I make complex information systems easy to understand and pleasant to use. And recently I've been focusing a lot on work in healthcare and higher education. There's a lot of complexity, a lot of regulation, a lot of systems, and a lot of people involved in all of those systems. And those are the kind of meaty projects that I find I really like digging into. I've been an independent consultant for about a year with my own company of me. Prior to that, I was at Frog Design in Seattle for 2 years, and then I was at Deloitte Digital for about 2.5 years before that as an associate creative director. And actually, it'll be a pleasure to be speaking at a branch of the University of Washington, because that's where I did my own education in English several years ago now. So.
Well, as a user experience professional, I know you do have a personal interest in specifically in content development, and your topic at the conference will be content first prototyping. So just why don't you talk about how you came around to developing that topic and how it relates to the types of things that you do.
Yeah, pleasure. So the technique that I'll be talking about, this content first prototyping, comes directly out of a project that I was involved with at a former consultancy. And it's actually, I sort of blanket that because there's been a lot of projects. There was just one where it sort of clicked. And the genesis of approaching prototyping in this way and approaching design in this way comes from working through a low fidelity clickable prototype with clients and with users and doing usability testing, and finding that in some cases and for some projects, the real crux of the problem isn't the arrangement of the boxes on the screen or what the eventual colors might be or how things move from place to place. It's how the language works, and it's how individual labels work, but more than that, it's how the way that users, as they're moving through a prototype, construct a model and a pattern, and they start to build maps in their head out of just the words that we put together. And that I found in this particular project and another project since is really difficult to test in static designs. And while tools like TreeJack can get you closer to that kind of test, when you only have little snippets of what a person might actually see, you can still be surprised in the end and surprised by the final product. So what I had envisioned was, well, it would be great to be able to take our prototype and start with the content first, just very flat-footed about it. Let's put all of the content, ideal world, plop it into a spreadsheet, because that's where all, if you're doing a content audit, that's where it all starts off or ends up anyway. And then from there, be able to pull that selectively into a prototype. I did play with Sketch and Envision, which are great tools and used for lots of other projects. And they do have some tools for pulling in JSON feeds and pulling in actual content to prototypes. But it's really difficult to control the logic of how they move and be consistent about where that content shows up. So although I am an information architect and an interaction designer, I love noodling in code, and I love noodling, and I feel like every time I try and cobble together a JavaScript, it feels like I'm working on a wristwatch or some little fine piece of machinery, and when it works, it's fascinating, and when it doesn't, there's always a really good reason. It's usually because something that I did wrong. So what I started to do was started to cobble together these pieces and came up with a framework that is reliable and repeatable that I'll be happy to share at the upcoming conference. But more than that, putting that together, modeling that system and thinking through it and working through it helped me see where the approach is different. So that even if you're, as a designer, as an information architect, you have an in-house tool that you could conceivably achieve these kinds of goals with, that's great. Leave the framework behind, but take the ideas. And the ideas come out of some subjects I've been writing about and studying about and thinking about lately, primarily systems thinking and cognitive psychology, because these are how people put these systems together. So I think that the big takeaway that people will get from my talk and my session is how to think about our information systems as systems that your users actively put together in their head and think through the implications of what that means and come away with some tools of how to work through these systems that are, even if they appear simple, as soon as you have multiple stakeholders, multiple systems, multiple updates, or multiple content creators, then you're dealing with a complex system, and trying to predict how it works gets really tricky. Well, long answer to a short question.
Well, that's good, and I have a follow-up that came to me as you're going through that, which is that like in my experience with a lot of UX designs, as they start to appear and we get our wireframes, that more often than not, content is represented as a little bucket square in the wireframe that says content goes here, and even though that content it has been part of the design process, it's not actually explicitly used in that part. I was wondering, if what your experience is with that and how you fit your approach in with the broader team.
Yeah, so I'm actually using this technique on a current client. It's a community college. I'm working with them to help them sort through the taxonomy of their programs and how they tie into departments and how they tie into divisions and classes and across different programs. And one of the things that I'm finding with this project in particular is that the process of assembling a content-first prototype and working with content from the beginning, it includes more people in the conversation, and it helps us all work through a complex content system together because, and this was one of the requirements that I had in building this framework, most of the content creation and the vocabulary definition work is done in a spreadsheet. So it's a tool that's accessible to everyone, and it's a tool that you can share and collaborate on as well. So what I'm finding is that with this particular client, they had been having this conversation for years and trying to work through it, but because it was always a question of particular labels, and then they would think how that worked through a particular program, a particular class, it was hard to see how all the wheels worked together. So putting them together in a structured way and then being able to model that and prototype that content in a lightweight prototype means that we can actually go ahead and put some of those models together and try out some different alternatives, but then run a simulation of it quickly and see, oh yeah, that is what we wanted, or that's not what we wanted and it's terrible, or it's not what we wanted, and wow, here's another opportunity of something we could do. It is a bit like working with a finished CMS, but without having to do all the coding and all the database. There are no databases involved. It's all flat file systems. So the things that we can collaborate on, and we can just really make a big mess, spread them out, and then start to sort things out. It's doing digitally a little bit like we would do with sticky notes anyway, except the sticky notes are tied together with logic that we can run.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to give me a preview for this, and hopefully that'll give people an idea of what you'll be talking about at the conference, and I'll see you in just a few weeks in Tacoma.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Andy.